Now, I gotta start out here with a bit of an apology, because it turns out the I'll believe it when I see it crowd was maybe kinda right about Kennedy's departure from Lucasfilm. Though I really thought it was happening this time. I really thought with virtually every major news outlet jumping on and reporting on the story, that Kathleen Kennedy was as good as gone this time. But according to an interview she herself, Kennedy herself, just did with Deadline, that's not entirely the case, but it's not all bad news here because, yes, the hunt is actually on for her replacement, and she does talk about leaving in the near future. And so, jumping right into the article or the interview, and I'll put a link to it in the description below because it's kind of on the longer side and I'm not going to read anywhere near the whole thing. Plus, as always, I do encourage you to read it for yourself and not just take my word for it or my interpretation of it, but to come to your own conclusions in regards to what she said. But anyway, we're just going to jump right in with her response to the very first question, where she was basically asked what's really going on with all these reports or rumors coming out that she's retiring, and that it'll happen by the end of the year, and that Disney is on the hunt for her replacement. And to that she said, "The truth is, and I want to just say loud and clear, I am not retiring. I will never retire from movies. I will die making movies. That is the first thing that's important to say. What's happening at Lucasfilm is I have been talking for quite some time with Bob and Alan about what eventual succession might look like. We have an amazing bunch of people here, and we have every intention of making an announcement months or a year down the road. We are in lockstep as to what that's going to be, and I am continuing. I am producing the Mandalorian movie right now, and I'm also producing Sean Levy's movie, which is after that. So I'm continuing to stay at Lucasfilm and looking very thoughtfully with Bob and Alan as to who's stepping in, so that is all underway, and we have every right to make that announcement when we want to make it. So, in other words here, yes, she is in the process of leaving, but it isn't happening quite yet, or maybe not happening as soon as some of us would want it to happen, but it does seem to still be happening in the not too distant future, and the search for her replacement is indeed on, though she talked in response to another question about how even after that change is made, that she'd be sticking around to produce some of the movies currently in development, and that she'd want to help the next person ease into the role. Furthermore, and granted this interview is purely in the written form, and maybe I'm imagining it, that'd be fair to say, but she does seem to be a little annoyed that the news came out the way that it did, especially later on in the interview when she talks about how she is not being forced out by Disney, and that this is all her choice, that essentially Disney is somehow happy with everything she's done, and all of this is being done on her timeline. Her stepping away is all her choice. This is her decision, plain and simple. Which, if true, is just baffling to me that Disney is so happy with her, that everything is, again, being dictated by her. I have talked many times before about the problems the Star Wars franchise has had under her leadership, about things like the declining returns at the box office for the sequel trilogy, how, despite early success on Disney Plus, the recent shows have had pretty terrible viewership, especially for a franchise like Star Wars, and that so many projects have been announced and never come to fruition in her time at the helm. And she does talk about that, basically saying that projects not happening or falling apart is all just a part of the business. It happens all the time at other studios, and for some reason, when it happens at Lucasfilm or with Star Wars, it's huge news, and she doesn't seem to understand why they're under such scrutiny when others aren't. Which is kind of a strange thing to say if she truly understands Star Wars and its fans, because Star Wars is the premier franchise. It is, as I described in a video the other day about all this, it's kind of the New York Yankees of entertainment franchises, or the Dallas Cowboys, or LA Lakers, or pick your famous team from whatever sport. It is the one everyone is always going to talk about and analyze the most. It is the one that has not necessarily the most passionate fan base. So yes, their fan bases are very passionate. Do not get me wrong. Don't come at me. But they, you could say, are a fan base that demand a good team each and every season, like Star Wars fans pretty much demand good shows or movies. And they do it or expect it more so than maybe other teams or franchises do. And anything less than a winning season or a championship pretty much every year is generally seen as unacceptable or a failure, And questions will always be asked when the L's start to stack up. And when that happens, when you are not winning, the one who tends to get looked at or blamed or scrutinized the most is the management or the coach. And she doesn't seem to understand why so many people are interested in her job status. Saying at one point in this interview, when asked why she thinks people are so interested in that, I truly don't know, and any discussion previously about me retiring or quitting or any of those things, that's complete rumor mill because through all these reports, I have just continued doing my job and continuing my contract. Nothing unusual. It all has just been manufactured. And to me, and yes, I could be wrong, but this just seems like feigning ignorance to avoid having to answer the tough questions. Or she is simply somehow ignorant or unable to read the room. She doesn't seem to understand just how many people, how many Star Wars fans out there have been very unhappy with her or unhappy with Star Wars for the better part of a decade. The fact that there has been so many rumors over the years about her retiring or being kicked out, that every time her contract is about to come up, it is big news in the fandom. That should really let her know how badly some of us, many of us fans, want her to be gone already. That see her as the biggest problem right now. I mean, did she not see the South Park special about her? Did she not hear about it? Does she not understand just how many fans don't like her or don't like what they think she has done to Star Wars? How could you not understand why so many people are interested in you potentially leaving when so many are unhappy with you? And I mean, this isn't just a few unhappy fans that you should ignore, or should ignore if you're Disney and could theoretically get rid of her. This is, despite what some may want to say or argue that it is just an angry, loud minority, but there are a lot of fans that feel like she is literally the destroyer of Star Wars, that are no longer fans because of her, because of what she's done. And the sad part is some feel like it's been decimated so badly that even with this recent announcement that she was leaving, they still don't care. It's all just too late for them. I can't even tell you how many comments I have read over the past few days where people say they're just apathetic at this point. That Star Wars has been so bad for so long that even Kennedy leaving and potentially someone better coming in, it can't save it for them. They just can't find it in themselves to either care or believe things could actually get better anymore. And that was just so kind of sad yet sobering to see because, I don't know, I guess a part of me always envisioned or hoped that when the day finally came that Kennedy was leaving, and granted some were rightfully skeptical that she was actually leaving, but I thought there would be this sort of collective celebration from the fandom that she would be gone. And though sure, some people were happy or very happy about it and celebrating it, many just didn't seem to care. Many felt like the damage was done and Star Wars could not be saved no matter what. And though I do disagree with that, though I certainly understand why you might feel that way, I don't fault you for feeling that way, but I think the right person, the right direction for the franchise could certainly save it. Not saying it is ever going to be what it once was or that anyone could ever make it perfect, but I don't think it's impossible to make good Star Wars, to make great Star Wars. It has been done before. And yes, even Disney under Kennedy has put out some really good Star Wars. And some of it has indeed been great. Consistency has simply been the biggest problem, along with, as discussed before, getting things that they really, really needed to get right, that fans really, really cared about, like the sequel trilogy. Getting things like that wrong has been the other big problem, I'd say. And speaking of that, Kennedy talked a little bit in this interview about the future plans for the franchise, what projects are in the works right now, and of course there is the Mando and Grogu movie, which will come out next spring. But there are also a couple other projects that she seems pretty confident are going to happen and that are moving along. There is a movie from Sean Levy, which will be the next one up after the aforementioned Mando and Grogu movie, and it'll be set a few years after the rise of Skywalker and may even have some sequel trilogy characters in it. Also, Simon Kinberg is working on a trilogy that will essentially be the next Star Wars saga, and it will also be set sometime after the rise of Skywalker, something like 15 to 20 or 30 years or something like that, I believe was said, which I don't know if that is going to be the answer to how do you win back Star Wars fans and how do you save the franchise. But that is apparently the plan from the current president of Lucasfilm, who again also plans to stick around long enough to make some of these things happen. So I really don't know what to say here. Again, I always root for Star Wars. I always try to err on the side of optimism, though I also try to be pragmatic and realistic. But I don't know about this news. She is leaving. She will be gone relatively soon, it sounds like. But it sounds like there will still be plenty of damage done by her along the way. Well, I think that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think about all this. Yes, Kennedy is leaving, and in the relative near future it seems, but even when she is gone, she won't be totally gone, and many of her projects, or so she hopes anyway, will live on, and she will be a part of them, and a part of Star Wars for quite some time yet. So tell me what you think about that, and do it in the comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time. Thanks for watching.